Northern Ireland is being inundated with planning applications for factory pig farms and their associated anaerobic digesters. Local people are protesting because existing animal factories are sickening local residents, are polluting natural habitats and are destroying local economies. At the JMW Limited factory farm at Ballyclare, a neighbour had tried to complain to the management.
It's not a farm as such, it's a factory or pig concentration camp, if you like. They wouldn't talk to us. I mean, I have had the door slammed in my face when I went to talk to them about issues.
The owners of the JMW farm, Jim and Mark White, refused our request for an interview. They're also directors of Crockway Farms Limited in Somerset, where animal welfare campaigners Viva exposed the squalid conditions in which the pigs were kept.
We're willing to put up with some smell and some slurry. We tried to have a barbecue, and then halfway through the barbecue the smell has been vented and we've had to go back in again. We can't leave windows open, we can't leave the door open on hot days because the smell comes in. If we leave clothing outside on the line, pig smell saturates everything, we have to bring everything in.
Locals have united against JMW Farms' request to enlarge this Ballyclare pig factory. A few miles down the road at Monkstown is another large-scale pig factory owned by local farmer Stephen Hall. He has recently been given planning permission and has started building a new pig factory and anaerobic digester a couple of miles up the hill at Newtownabbey.
I can hold my head high and say I fought against this. There's individuals there who should hold their head in shame.
But so I think that while the general public's objection is primarily about smell, they really do need to understand the potential toxic effect.
There are going to be a number of ways it's going to impact on the local population, which is appreciable. There are going to be irritants and allergens, gases like ammonia and hydrogen sulfide. Sensitive receptors have been defined as anybody living within 250 metres of where this slurry is spread. They're going to be impacted upon as well with nuisance, but also I think because it will lead in the population to an increase in antibiotic-resistant bacteria.
I was an objector on behalf of constituents. I'm also a personal objector, as it were, in that I suffer the effects of the existing farm day in and day out.
When it came to the planning application for the factory farm, there were 250,000 people online who said no, they didn't want it. And there were over 1,000 letters written by local residents who said, which is higher than any objections to anything else in the Newtownabbey area, said we absolutely don't want it. And one person said, oh yeah, this is a great idea. And we were utterly shocked that that level of numbers wasn't considered.
Though the recommended distance between an animal factory and a private residence is 250 metres, Dr. Debbie Turner, an occupational health specialist, lives only 150 metres from the site. Many objectors don't believe that health issues will be taken into account, and her objection was ignored. I quote part of her objection. Of huge concern to me is the spread of disease from pigs to humans because of their close genetic links to human DNA. High-risk populations like the very young, the elderly, pregnant women, and the immunocompromised are all at very real risk of long-term health problems. She goes on, the assertion in the applicant's report that the proposal will not cause demonstrable harm to human health is in no way substantiated or supported by any proper research.
The pig farm is a huge, massive factory that's going to contain thousands of pigs who are going to be just basically kept in a confined space. Most of them will go to China. It's going to have an impact for me personally with my son Logan, who's the youngest of my children. He has chronic lung condition and he also is on the autistic spectrum and has sensory processing disorder. On walking Logan to school, when he used to go to the primary school, he would have vomited on the way to school because the senses were just overloaded with the smell from the smaller pig farm, which is below this one. And considering how much more slurry is going to be needed to be spread out in fields surrounding my home, I would be concerned about that.
My name is Gesa Staats and I worked as a vet on pig farms. Usually would have burning eyes from the ammonium, and in the evenings very often I would have migraines. So your eyes burn and you don't feel well. I mean, it's no wonder that then the lungs and the eyes and whatever of the pigs get damaged and that they get infections and that you then have to treat them with antibiotics.
Any child roaming around in this sort of area is potentially going to ingest antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Modern medicine relies on the use of antibiotics, and of course if they don't work then it can lead to prolonged illness or even, in the worst case to death, and we're beginning to see that with bacterial resistance.
In Denmark, the overuse of antibiotics in factory pig farms has led to a dangerous rise in human infections caused by the antibiotic-resistant superbug, MRSA.
We know that we have to reduce our antibiotic use. We have used too many antibiotics for many years. So yes, we should have done this sooner, and it would have been easier to contain, for instance, the MRSA problem if we had done so. The fact is that all countries with a big pig production have this problem. They just don't know exactly how big it is.
A US report showed that flies can spread bacteria several miles from pig farms to neighbouring people.
Another health issues with the flies, which are landing on the pig slurry, and then they're coming across to our house and landing on items of food. Then we've had to put fly paper up on the kitchen ceiling, and we could have as many as 4 or 5 rolls of fly paper hanging down.
I was embarrassed by the smell. If people would come to call, if you left your windows open at all, your house was full of flies. And my daughter was terrified of flies. And there were times at night when a fly would have gotten into her room and she'd wake up screaming because a fly was, one of these big, massive flies was buzzing around her bed.
The local primary schools, shops and one hospital are all less than 2 miles from pig factory units.
I am a father and I am a son. I've learned what I can and I'm passing it on. Heaven help us, what have they done?